And we're live.
Good evening, and thank you for joining us this evening on the fourth episode of the Huntsmen podcast. Today is January 12th, 2021. I'm here with Curtis and Yvonne, and I'm Drew. And we've got a really good selection of what we're going to be discussing tonight regarding a couple of cryptics, specifically Dogmen and Werewolves. And I should probably preface this with mature audiences only. There may be some disturbing content that we'll be discussing.
All right.
So before I start this, before I start, does anyone want to say anything or
Oh, jeez.
Uh,
Thanks for the disclaimer.
Well, yeah, I wanted to try to get a recorded one to throw in there, but I'm just not that tech savvy yet.
So I guess we need to start off and say, what are dogmen and werewolves? I mean, my wife complains that I don't take the trash out sometimes, and she dogs me. So
You're a dog.
I'm a dog man. So, but I take the trash out because she tells me
All
to.
men are dogs.
That's it.
Okay,
Don't
I would agree with that. Yeah.
don't hate the player, hate the game. So. I have a funny feeling we're not talking about that. Now, when I was doing research for this show, I ran across two different things for Dogmen. Okay.
And what did you find?
Well, one was Dogman, M-A-N. And the other was, we just lost Yvonne. The other was Dogmen.
Okay.
So a dog, the Dogman is a wolf-like creature that was up in north, western or eastern Michigan that appeared, and it's kind of a local rumor or legend. The Dogmen that I found is, and she's back. The Dogmen.
Was that me?
Yeah, that was you. You disappeared for a second.
The Dogmen. There was a couple movies made, but it was about a American Indian tribe that had been lost for 130 years, and they were still in their primal, I guess you'd say, living untouched for the last 130 years. And so, but that's not what we're talking about, right? We're talking about the more dog-like creatures that can stand 7 feet tall, have blue eyes, and striking the fear into the small of many people.
That's correct, yes.
Okay. So the one story I heard was that some lumberjacks in Michigan came across this Dogman, and they chased him down, and he ran into a hollow log. Then they started poking him with sticks and stuff, and then he came out. He was 7 feet tall, and they all peed themselves, and then they ran off like big babies. So
yeah, let's go ahead and really aggravate the living hell out of something that is, at least a foot taller than most grown men and outweighs them between 100 and 200 pounds. Yeah, let's go ahead and poke him with a sharp stick.
Well, but you probably don't know how tall he is until he stands up, because I think they were saying that he takes the position of a wolf or a dog, and that maybe he actually runs or hangs out with wolves or dogs, coyotes, whatever. And until he raises up on his legs, that you wouldn't know how tall he was.
Probably to eat them. That's why he hangs out with them.
Well, I've never heard of dogmen. I mean, I've heard of werewolves, but dogmen are relatively new to me. So where is this dating back from?
Drew?
Okay. I'll go ahead and start off with my notes that I did for tonight's podcast. Are they indigenous? Yes, they are. They have been around for generations, for millennia. But they were in very small groups. So, which is fine. I mean, no one ever came across them, rarely, except for what we read in different types of folklore and mythology and legend. Mythology and legend can be based in truth, but this is going to really fry some heads tonight. So I was hoping to get some information from a couple of sources on some numbers, but they hadn't gotten back with me yet. So the numbers that we're talking about are just estimations, and like always, I may be wrong. So, anyway, so they're indigenous, so they've been around. We moved to World War II and Adolf Hitler. He was obsessed with the occult to the point it was almost like the Indiana Jones and the Ark of the Covenant. Hitler was really crazy about accessing the occult, using the occult to help him win his. He basically was running a two-front war, which was a real big mistake, strategically speaking. But he tried, and thank God he lost. So we've got that one obsession with the occult, and he really had this thing about wolves, the four-legged kind. I mean, that were grays,
animal.
red. Yeah, right, the animals. And he, towards the end of the war, he wound up going and naming one of his special operation forces the Werewolfs. And in fact, after Germany fell to the Allied forces, they were left behind purposely to raise a lot of hell with occupying force. So, we have the end of World War II, and the United States needed to know technology, and we were the aircraft was still basically in its infancy, and there was something called it was called Operation Paperclip, where, and I think it's mentioned in the movie Captain America Winter Soldier. And one of the characters discussed about Operation Paperclip, which is true. And what they did was they used Operation Paperclip of scientists and German scientists and German engineers to bring them to the United States and basically get their technology, get their information, get their knowledge, so to better prepare us. And this is where it gets kind of freaky.
Like it's not freaky enough already?
Right. Well, it's going to get really scary here in a few more minutes, okay?
Scary.
Yes, definitely. So American scientists and engineers, as they were working along with German scientists, they found that Germany was several generations ahead of our war-making capability. Our engineering feats were, like I said, several generations behind what they were. So they asked them. They said, "Well, how'd you guys pull this off?" And they said that they were using the occult. And they were like, "Okay, well, you're using the occult. So what does that mean?" Well, they were able to access portals, for lack of a better word, and they did things that were, well, I don't want to say, probably inhumane, for lack of a better word, or not of best practice, so to speak. But when you've got a lunatic running an army and he wants results, you're going to do what you got to do to get the results. So that's what they did. And portals were opened, and there were cooperation between the interdimensional, whatever it was, this portal that the Germans were able to open, and them, meaning the German scientists and engineers, to bring forth this new levels and new generations of technology. So hold on just a second. So now we're into the late 40s, early 50s, and there were two forward-thinking men, Jack Parson and L. Ron Hubbard. L. Ron Hubbard is an author, and one of his accomplishments, if you want to call it that, was the creation of Scientology. Jack Parsons was more of he wasn't traditionally trained, but he was almost a self-taught engineer. He wound up dying when one of his rocket factories, when a rocket factory blew up with him in it. So we've got German scientists, then German engineers, and they talked about opening portals. L. Ron Hubbard and Jack Parsons were able to open a portal here in the United States with some interdimensional consequence. After the Americans found, and that portal, by the way, still remains open. What I've read and what I've researched has remained open, but I'm not sure on that because they're both dead. And
Where's the portal?
Somewhere in the Mojave Desert, in California.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I know it's going to be crazy, guys. So just hold on, okay?
I mean, maybe where Burning Man is. I mean, we don't know.
Yeah, that's a very good question. That really is. It very well may be that, So, yeah, I know it's getting weird, Curtis. I know. Hang loose, folks. Hang loose. It gets better.
Bernie Man, and I thought, well, Bernie ran for president, but is he really from a different dimension?
I'm not going to go there. So, but anyway,
He's Bernie Man.
Feel the burn.
Exactly. Well, after World War II, in the, like I said, the late 40s and into the early 50s, before Korea, and actually during Korea, the American military wanted to provide the best soldier possible, and because of human limitations on our size, our strength, our abilities, it just wasn't doing it for them. And so they needed to come up with what was called a super soldier, for lack of a better word at the time. Well, they found out that these dogmen and werewolves were real, and albeit in limited numbers. I mean, they weren't like, thousands and thousands of them at the time, roaming the western portion of the United States. So what they wound up doing was they trapped and experimented on these animals, on these creatures.
So wait, who trapped them?
The United States military and private, and as well as defense contractors.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I know it's kind of a stretch, and again, we're gonna wind up having a lot of episodes a lot of podcasts about this, because this is a very involved. This thing's been going on for 50, 60 plus years in the United States.
You mean we're still experimenting on Dogmen? Is that what you were saying?
No, they were
okay.
released, but I'm getting you're getting a little ahead of me, but that's okay.
Oh,
so
sorry.
That's good news. They were released.
Yes,
yeah.
They put them back into the wilderness,
Woo-hoo.
or the portal. The portal.
Well, no, they didn't use the portal. They just
sorry.
released them back into into the wilds in various portions of the United States.
Bonus.
Exactly.
For everything else, there's MasterCard.
Just wait until we talk about Land Between the Lakes, Curtis. And I think
I've been there.
It's going to be good. So when, like I said, breeding programs were established to bring the dogmen and werewolves into have them become the super soldiers. And you know what? It worked. They were very.
So, Drew, can we just stop for a moment? So, what's
a
super soldier? Like, what exactly? I mean, we've seen the Marvel movie, but I mean, what's a super soldier in this context? What are we talking about?
Well, regarding with these creatures, they're expendable. Number one, you're not losing human life. Number two, they're able to survive several what most humans would be considered life-threatening gunshot wounds.
Okay.
And and in combat, rifles are used, not pistols, generally speaking.
Right.
Pistols put holes in people. Rifles put rounds through people, which is very important to remember. And rifles are used basically, for lethality in war, because it's to, kill the other side. And what they want.
Okay.
And so you've got these creatures that are now able to, for lack of a better word, I don't want to call them bullet sponges, but there's a certain psychological element of a creature that's between 7 and 8 feet tall, that weighs 300 to 400 pounds, that has a howl that will run right through your bones, running at you, unarmed, other than what they've got. God gave them that. And it's a real psychological deterrent for the enemy, because it's like, well, I'm not going there because that's where all the bad things are, that kind of thing. So
what
you
wars have we used them in?
Vietnam,
Okay.
as well as other conflicts. They were used recently to extract a U.S. citizen that was being held against his will, I believe, in Yemen. But I've got to check on that to make sure that the information was correct, or what information from the source,
Right.
what I heard. So basically, the dog man looks like a dog. He'll run on 4 legs. He'll walk on 2. He has a long snout for the front of his face, pointy ears, and tufts of hair, pointing out of those ears. He has an incredible amount of upper body strength that is just, just people would go, well, that looks like a man. Well, it probably does look like a man, because at some point there may have been some genetic, alterations that made these creatures more physical than more physically than what they are, or what they originally were. And they're incredibly strong. They have, they've got their claws are almost like hands, their paws have like a set of digits. They're like fingers with an opposable
They have
thumb.
thumbs.
Yeah, an opposable thumb. Yes.
So they can answer the phone.
Correct, and enter camping trailers and land between legs, which we'll get to here in a few minutes. But long that are enough to go through thin sheet metal. Some of them have gone through 1/4-inch steel before. I think that would be a rarity, but you never know. So, and that's just bone chilling for most of us.
So you mean the claws, nails going through
Yeah.
steel? Is that the claws?
Well,
or-
they said that it can go up to 1/4 of an inch of plate steel, basically. But most of us drive around in cars that don't have that kind of construction. So now, as far as
Mine's
werewolves,
made out of plastic.
your car,
Yeah.
Most cars.
yeah.
It's just
Well,
plastic.
they call it composite, and so anyway, yeah, they kind of make it look cool, but it's the lower weight, and I understand that. So now about werewolves. Yeah, exactly. They are not like Lon Chaney. When you get bit by a werewolf, you become one. No, you don't. If this creature is a werewolf, it was one from birth. It continues to be one until it dies.
Okay.
same thing
So
with-
it's
the same-
passed on through birth.
Well, I don't want to say at birth, but I mean it's conceived, and that's what's going to pop out.
It's
So,
genetic,
yeah,
is what you're saying, though.
correct. Yes. So
So they have to find a girl that likes hairy guys.
well, werewolves aren't that hairy, but we'll talk about that in a
Hairy like
minute too.
animal.
You're mixing them up, Curtis. You're mixing them up.
Because I went to school with a kid named Sid. He was pretty hairy, and he had sort of a long nose, and he was down at Land Between the Lakes. Yeah.
Correlation.
Coincidence?
We may have to get him on as a guest someday,
Uh,
which I'm working on a couple of people right now to see if I can.
It would be a howling good time.
To come on and explain this process. Oh, yes, it would.
I don't
Yvonne's
wanna
never
be
going to leave
barking
her
up the wrong
condo.
tree or
Oh,
anything.
Curtis.
Sorry.
Throw in
really
the
glad
cheap
Curtis
joke.
Ba-dum-bum.
I'm glad Curtis is here, because this is some really serious stuff, and it's just really, I'm glad he's there for the comic relief. I really do, and I really appreciate it, Curtis. I really do. So the werewolf actually is not look like a dog man. They look more like a man. They really do.
The werewolf does.
Correct. Yeah. And there are, they've got a face like a human, and they're able to talk. And if they're trained correctly, they're able to read the English language. And I was like, And I checked multiple sources, and I'm like, oh, this is nuts. This is crazy. I mean, this is impossible, So anyway, and they have a standard IQ that would be consistent with most people of the average in the United States, which I believe is between, I think it's either 95 and 100 to 115 or 110. I'm not sure, but whatever the mean IQ average is, they're at least at that. So anyway, they, they look physically like a human. They really do. They don't have a long tail. Oh, I'm sorry. I got to back up on the Dogmen. They have a long tail, like a dog, and they don't resemble Dogmen at all. They really don't. It's like day and night with these creatures. So now that we've done that, now for the bad news. So they had this breeding program in the United States. And
Are you saying breeding or reading?
Yeah, breeding program.
Well, they don't want them illiterate.
Correct. Well, they're killing you. Well, they're killing you.
Wolf mind is a terrible thing to waste.
Exactly.
I was just making sure I understood correctly.
It's you really got to look into the material, and you really got to decide whether you're going to wrap your mind around it or not, or just be like casual observers like we are. So anyway, they've been released, I think, in 2015, I believe, and that's when all the fun starts. Now,
Did they tag them?
Yes, they have a tattoo, an identification tattoo in one of their ears, and they have a chip in their brain that calls them home when they're commanded to. But it's not a lethality chip, so you can't just push the destruct button and they go away or anything. No. So, but they're terminal states, which is good to know.
What did you say about their states?
I said they're with this tracking chip based on the technology that they had when they released them 6 years ago. They are able to track them throughout the United States.
Oh, okay.
Which is a kind of a good idea because they do raise a lot of hell, and excuse my language there, but sometimes this is just what happens with with these creatures that are wild, and you've trained them, and now you've got to go and release them, and now they get to be wild again.
So
Both,
we're using Dogmen and werewolves.
Correct, yes.
Okay.
And the numbers at the time, if my memory serves correctly, it was about 48,000, give or take, Dogmen, and around half that amount for werewolves. Here's the bad part, guys. So now they've got them. Now they've released them. And so now they're in the wild. And they didn't dump them all in the same spot. And they're very nomadic, too. But they still are trackable. So if there is some, evilness going on, they are hunted down. They're actually recalled if there's something bad going on. If they're killing people indiscriminately, which I'm going to get to here in a minute, of a quadruple homicide that occurred in land between the lakes in the late 70s to late 80s.
Where are they living? I mean, are they being housed or are they just living outdoor like werewolves, like animals?
Right, they're living back in the wild.
Why would they release them?
Because for some reason someone didn't want them around anymore. They didn't want for some reason the program got canceled, and I don't know why. I'm still trying to figure that one out. Because there were locations in Virginia where these creatures were, where the breeding program occurred, and as well as training for them as well, which I'll get into here in a few minutes.
I would think if it was sort of a secret program, obviously, because they aren't publicizing this. They don't want people to know that we're breeding dogmen and werewolves for military purposes, that they would never let them see the light of day unless they had something for them to do.
Correct. And I certainly agree with that. But for some reason, someone said, let's let them loose, and they didn't like the program, or I don't know, whoever was in power, probably somebody sitting at 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue decided, oh, I don't want to do this anymore. Let's go, and just, we're done. Let them go. We're going to use, humans. And
that song is appropriate. You know the song I'm talking about? Who Let the Dogs Out?
Yes, there you go.
I'm not going to sing it.
We need to get better with sounds. You could have just done your hoop hoop.
or yeah. Or I wasn't getting ready to speak. Just hit the the laugh button again, or the the howling is what we need right now. So yeah, there you go.
A little late on that, but yes.
Sorry.
Exactly.
Right.
The button's over here.
Okay.
Yeah, you.
Okay.
Hang on.
Hang on. No, that's. Oh no.
There we go. Now we're messing with all the sounds.
Yeah. Well, I can't remember what sounds are what. So I got a
The
Mary
So-
button.
See, Curtis, you're a little behind on all of this.
I just thought of them.
The man with the switches and buttons. Remember Yvonne on our first episode?
Yes, yes.
So anyway,
All right. So I have a question though.
hey, have at it.
Are they only supposed? So only this United States has these super soldiers. They're not anywhere else in the world.
Russia didn't get them, did they?
I certainly hope not.
Because at the end of World War II, Russians occupied
Yeah, the Russians went in.
a good part of Germany. So
No, exactly. So that's, and I think Operation Paperclip, I think helped extract a lot of German scientists to the United States. Russia did wind up getting a number of them as well. So it really helped in both of our states, both in our space programs early on. Excuse me.
Wait. The werewolves helped in the space program?
No. The fact of the German scientists that came to the United States
okay.
versus the ones that went to Russia. We wound
Gotcha.
it wound up helping both space programs kind of grow.
Okay.
So in the late 70s or early 1980s, there was a family of 4 that had a camper of sorts, and they went camping at a land between the lakes.
And where is that? Is that in Illinois?
No, it borders both Kentucky and Tennessee.
Oh, okay. God.
it's Lake Barkley and
That's right. I know that.
And Kentucky Lake.
yeah,
You
there's
know
a
what I
river
was
that-
thinking? The Garden of the Gods for some reason. I'm with
There's
you.
a
Right,
river that
right.
runs through it. What river is that? But it basically they dammed the river and then it caused those 2 lakes. So
Yeah, correct. With as a historical standpoint, wish I could talk. They went and Kennedy, John F. Kennedy, went and designated that as a I don't want to call it a national forest, national park. Well, I'm not sure what its designation is. 170,000 square acres, lots of water, lots of game. In fact, as an aside, about I want to say in the 2000s, the Rocky Mountain Elk Foundation released elk to be repatriated to land between the lakes, which is very cool because they were originally there, and they were repatriated there as well. And now they are thriving very, very well. They're able to now. The Commonwealth of Kentucky now allows elk tags to be issued on a limited basis for hunting. Okay, getting back to Dogmen and Werewolves. Like I said, in the late 70s or early 80s, there was this family of 4 that was camping, and they were attacked by at least one dogman. And there were, it's like Freddy Krueger went nuts, basically. They were, the coroner's office at the time said it was some sort of animal. The father was able to grab a hold of some hair from the creature that attacked him, which was later subsequently identified as some type of canine. Well, so there was a young couple that had just, I don't know if they were honeymooning or had just gone there. They were newlyweds, I believe. And they came across the scene and they stopped. They got out of there. They contacted law enforcement, and law enforcement went in, and they initially found 3 victims. Their limbs were almost torn off their bodies. one of the officers, when it was inside the door to this camper, was torn off one hinge and just hanging there. One officer went inside and pulled out a dress of a young girl, and there was the mom, the dad, and the son, but there was no little girl, and there was a bunch of other clothing that was there that indicated there was a little girl, a young child, a young girl that was present. So the officers went and followed some tracks and some blood, and they found the child up in a tree.
Oh my goodness.
This is some really sick stuff. I'm telling you. So they, to this day, it's unsolved, and I believe it happened on the Tennessee side of Land Between the Lakes. And there's a new prosecutor that's been looking at that case, because it's 36 plus years ago now that it happened, and it's considered a cold case, and they've trying to get the FBI involved, and the FBI recently has just assigned an agent to this investigation.
So they found her body up in a tree, just like hanging over a limb. Is that what you're saying? Just like.
Well, right, yeah, that's where they found that's where the officers found the little girl. She was up.
How old was she?
Not very old. She was, I believe, she was the youngest. So, you can get him 6, 8 years old, maybe. I don't know. I'd be guessing at that. Yeah, it is pretty sick. And recently in I believe it was southeastern Kentucky, there was a 13-year-old boy who died under mysterious circumstances, that he was attacked by an animal, and which killed him. And they wound up finding the boy drug up a steep incline. The Kentucky State Police, the coroner's office in that county, they aren't saying anything of what they think it is. They have some ideas, but they're not saying it. So we start thinking, well, is it a mountain lion? Mountain lions have been known to drag their prey away, but I don't know about having them sticking, their prey, their kill, so to speak, up in a tree. I don't know. They said something about a bear, and the coroner's office was sitting there checking it off, going, nope, this didn't do it. This didn't do it. And there were claw marks on the side of this camper that I mentioned earlier, and that were in that had gone sliced into the camper at some thickness through. I don't know how much. And this is what we call a moment of pause.
So have you concluded that is this a werewolf, or is this one of the Dogmen? How do you know?
No one is saying what it is. People know what it is.
But what do you think it is?
I'd have to see more physical evidence to make a determination on that. The thing with the girl up, the little girl up in the tree, and a 13-year-old boy in eastern Kentucky getting drug up some steep incline. Black bears have been, appearing in, the Commonwealth of Kentucky. Black bears aren't that violent. Maybe it was a stray grizzly bear or something, but they're having this similar kind of attacks that are occurring.
But a black bear wouldn't drag anybody up into a tree.
No, they wouldn't.
And
what animal would?
So a cat.
Possibly a mountain lion, but I don't see a mountain lion. Possibly a mountain lion, but a mountain lion killing 4 people. I don't see that. They're very solid.
Cheetahs and pumas, I do, but I mean those wouldn't something you'd find in Kentucky,
right?
Or Tennessee,
right? So, are they sure they're looking up the right tree? I mean, maybe they were barking up the wrong tree.
Push it.
No, wrong one.
Curtis, gosh.
It's just color coded. It didn't tell me what they are.
So
all
that's
right.
I mean,
we're gonna work on that.
yeah, we're gonna homework for the week. Before Sunday rolls around, we do this again. So that's kind of, and there's a lot more information out there. And I didn't really want to, talk nonstop for 2 hours on this.
Oh, you're fine. So we're just asking questions. So
by all, ask away. I mean, I really like to know what killed a family of 4, drug out one of the victims into a tree.
Well,
and,
could it be some homicidal maniac on drugs?
But put in the tree? That's still weird.
Well, regardless of the tree, let's put the
Right.
tree aside.
Okay, sorry. We're big picture. Sorry, I was focused on the tree.
Maybe she escaped and climbed up the tree.
Ah, there you go. That
Was she
actually
alive in
makes
the
it-
tree?
No.
no.
Oh.
But that's where she could have, her demise, unfortunately, right?
Well,
I mean,
The
it would make sense to climb a tree to try to get away from whatever.
the responding officer that was following the tracks to the tree didn't see anything until the blood of her nearly severed hand dropped onto the officer.
Yeah, that makes climbing a tree sort of hard.
Well, right, without a hand, So
Okay, but what
it's-
kind of tracks? What kind of tracks?
Do
go ahead.
these creatures, they wear clothes? Because if they're trained as soldiers, would they wear clothes with boots and pants?
No,
Not
they
the
don't.
dogmen, but the werewolves could. Because remember, don't
Yeah.
they look like a person?
Correct. Well, they have some similar facial features. They don't have long tails or anything like that. They're not, and they don't dress. So they're also, they're bipedal, but they can run on 4 legs too.
So did the tracks look animal? So no footprints is basically what we're saying.
No, there are tracks, but I really don't want to guess on what the track looks like. We'll have to get some static images, and like I said, this is a subject we're gonna be covering in subsequent podcasts. So we'll probably be able to have we'll get some static images of what these tracks look like. We don't have them for tonight's show. I apologize to the audience.
Right. But with the police reports, I mean, were you able to glean anything from that? Did they say animal tracks? It looked like there was an animal. What is the police report alluding to?
My understanding of what the report says is that it is they just said tracks. They said animal tracks, and they said it looked like a dog, but it was a really long. The length of it was really longer than
Right.
what
The
we'd
length
see
between
for
the tracks. Okay.
Well, that number one, and number two, it was just the size of the track itself was longer than what a traditional canine. I don't want to say traditional, but what a domesticated canine would look like.
Have there been any sightings of something like this in those type of areas?
The internet is full of people going out and hearing quote strange things, and if it and one of the things that a recurring theme that I kept on coming across was, if you hear nothing while you're in the woods, get out or find some sort of shelter or something. When there aren't any, when you're not hearing birds, you're not hearing insects. If it's dead still, there's some tie to that. I don't know. And there were 2 cases that when we talked about missing 411, 2 cases that they thought could have been related to that phenomenon, but it wasn't. They were thoroughly investigated, and dogmen or werewolves were not involved in 2 of the disappearances that they thought that may have been involved with the disappearance of these 2 individuals.
But
So who excluded? Sorry, Curtis,
No,
go ahead.
Go ahead.
I was
Well,
just
let's
going to say,
go-
who excluded them from
I'm really glad.
The
I'm really glad you brought that up, Yvonne. When I said there was a breeding program, they needed handlers. The handlers are basically one person who goes in with a set amount of dogmen, and or another handler will go in with a X amount of werewolves to, if they're doing something military, if they're doing a raid or something. When they get out of hand, there's a team of 16 people, former military, normally Marines, who have been around for a while, have seen combat, been in combat. They go through a vetting process. And Curtis is going to like this, when the animals come off the leash and start doing nasty things, they'll send in, a team of agents to go and take care of these creatures. Either one way or the other.
It just doesn't make, why even let them loose? I mean, they're not killing, like the family of 3 or 4 that died in the trailer. If you hear a still forest, you don't hear crickets or anything like that. It doesn't seem like you're going to really do much or get anywhere, because if they rip a door off a trailer, they're going to get you anyway. And they're going to be faster than you anyway.
Extraordinarily fast. Yeah, you can't outrun them.
And they probably have a good sense of smell, so they know where you are.
Extraordinarily good sense of smell and hearing as well.
And hearing and eyesight.
Just like dogs, so.
So you're basically SOL. But I'm saying is, but they aren't killing per se for food. Are they eating these people, or are they just kind of pissed off at them and just like, yeah.
I'm not sure at that point. I don't want to guess and be wrong on it.
I'm just saying, because it sounds like
it
was more anger or aggression that killed them. Maybe they poked the bear somehow, and then he got upset, and then he just shredded them. But I assume that they're carnivorous.
Oh, right. Who's feeding them?
They're probably just hunting game and whatever, right? Eating deer, rabbits, stuff like that. Typical dog stuff.
Recently introduced elk.
Elk? That's a meal. And I'm going to shove it up in the tree to have it later.
Exactly. Now,
wait till it ferments a little bit so it's spicy.
There's a couple of docs. There's a couple of doctors that looked at this as well, and they're convinced that these animals need an incredible amount of protein to sustain their high level of energy. Correct. Yeah.
They run hot, I bet.
Well, dogs do anyway. Yeah. I mean, they're
Are they putting caches of MREs out for them so they can just eat MREs?
I certainly hope not.
Because then they'd be constipated, then they'd really be PO'd.
Oh,
right,
my
that's
Lord.
why they're attacking people. They're like...
They didn't put toilet paper in that last MRE. I am PO'd.
Oh, exactly. Yeah.
Well, I heard MREs kind of if you eat just MRE over a period of time, it'll constipate you. So the last MRE I had was chicken a la king, and it was nasty. So,
how long ago was that?
Oh, it's been about 20 years. So we had MREs because I went on Land Between the Lakes, and when I was in 7th and 8th grade, we went on an Outward Bound thing, but that was down in the Ozarks, in Missouri, when I lived in Missouri before I came here to Southern Indiana. But but I've been down to Land Between the Lakes for a week at a time. It was just part of school, and we did experiments and.
What kind of experiments? I want to hear about this.
Yeah, that was my follow-up question. Yvonne, you beat it to me. You beat me to it.
So I discovered, and this is my theory, and I know this is a little bit wild, a little bit out there.
Not for you, Curtis.
That's what we're all about, isn't it? Wild and out there.
Now, my wife makes fun of me because I like McRib sandwiches.
Oh, God.
And they only offer
I remember this.
They only offer it certain times of the year. And that's because they have to grow that rib meat. And I'm convinced that they have a scientist somewhere that is growing rib meat on cats somewhere. And they can only harvest this rib meat off these cats once a year. But how they've got them to not only grow the rib meat on the outside of the cat, but how to secrete the barbecue sauce is another thing.
I just don't know, Curtis.
I'm telling you,
so weird.
That's why it's only Germany's the only country that has it year round.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yep.
That's
Apparently,
weird.
if you want a McRib, they're gone now. You know, we have it over December and part of January. But if you want a McRib, you got to fly to Germany to get it.
Mm-hmm. Well, maybe the cats they're using only gestate that within
I'm telling you,
a focused amount of time.
I thought about trying to find a mad scientist to get them to grow the rib meat faster, but then it could get out of control. So we don't want these pissed off cats running around because they're growing rib meat all the time, and that trying to keep them from licking the barbecue sauce off their sides is difficult too, I'd imagine. So that's my theory. It's just a theory. It's unproven.
Just a theory.
Yep.
Now, with all this said, please enjoy the outdoors. These attacks and these. One of the guests I want to try to, one of the potential guests I want to bring on, said that those animals get a real perverse pleasure out of scaring the living hell out of people.
Well, good for Halloween time.
Well, yeah, there's that. And and I kind of think they know that if they do something they're not supposed to be doing, they're going to wind up getting, come back to the farm, come back home, and we're going to retrain you, or we're going to kill you here on the spot. So now, Yvonne, you mentioned something going back to the super soldier. There is a core of instruction that these animals go through that basically is the equivalent of the United States Marine basic training. So between 8 and 12 weeks. Now, the one thing that they haven't done is teach them how to shoot a firearm. Thank God. Which I think would not be a good deal. They can jump out of aircraft. They can wear a parachute.
Oh, so they can jump out of aircrafts without parachutes?
With.
With.
Oh. Well, there's a famous story in World War II, the Gurkhas were...
from India.
Yes, they were... there was a regiment that the British had that was... maybe it wasn't Gurkhas. Anyway, seems to me it was, they weren't Gurkhas. But anyway, they were, it's a big thing to become a member of this British regiment. And it meant that they would have financial security for themselves and their family for the rest of their lives. So many men would try to get into the unit, but they only took a small percentage. And they needed volunteers for this particular mission, and the mission entailed them jumping out of an airplane to get to where they're going. And they wanted volunteers, but only like 4 or 5 people stood forward, and that was very unusual. And they asked, well, why are you guys hesitant? And then one said, do we get parachutes? They thought they would just want them to jump out of the airplane without a parachute. And then once they told them, yes, you
no
get
wonder
parachutes,
they only got
then they all
four
wanted
or
to
five.
volunteer.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Oh, it's like, okay, yeah. Well, we are getting parachutes, and those are, as an aside to the tonight's topic, the Gurkhas are some really badass guys.
Yeah, you don't want to come across a Gurkha.
No.
Yeah.
There was one in the Philippines in World War II. He was armed with an M1 Garand and I think 16 rounds of ammunition, and he was attacked by 40 Japanese. He killed 26 of them before they overwhelmed them basically. But that was with all 16 rounds out of his M1. With using the rifle as an impact weapon and his bare hands as well as some edged weapons too. Hence, there was another Gurkha that was in a British outfit in Afghanistan, and this guy really wore out. He was the Taliban, I believe, or Al Qaeda. He was on a fixed position static security post, and they came a calling, and they attacked this outpost, this forward operating base, and he used everything he had and wound up surviving and living to tell about it. He wound up receiving. He was heavily accommodated. What's the word I'm thinking of? He received some really good commendations for that, and it was well deserved too.
Yeah, I was just trying to find that British colony. It was they were made from. All I can really find is the Gurkhas. I'll think of it after we get off the air, of course. But
well, and we'll do our usual week. Our previous podcast mistakes segment.
Did we have one for this week?
I don't think I
Or
I
were
don't
we
remember
perfect
to be
last
honest.
week?
Well, I wouldn't go that far. I'm sure because we talked about missing 411 and Dave Politis, and I don't remember, to be honest with you.
Gotcha.
Yeah, so it sounds like this particular topic with the Dogmen and werewolves, it sounds like it's pretty layered. There's a lot of layers to this.
Yes, there certainly is, and again, I keep on dating myself and going back to Lon Chaney, who was a fine actor, was a werewolf, and in those old black and white movies, it was like, man turns into this, this werewolf, and he can only be killed with silver, and
Only comes out with the moon.
Yeah, full moon. Yeah, when the wolf bane blooms, apparently, it's part of the there's a
the
poem.
legend.
Yeah, the poem thing to scare little kids, I guess. They'll die from gunshot wounds. You run them over with your car, they're gonna die. They don't reanimate or which is good. And I just think that there's you're absolutely right, Yvonne. There's a lot of layers to this onion, and this is just we're going to be talking about this a lot, in the coming months, and I hopefully with having some guests on, I think we'll be able to kind of have I don't want to say a working knowledge, but a better understanding of what these creatures are.
Well, yeah, maybe we'll turn it into a series or something.
It just amazes me that they let the little suckers loose.
Yeah, we need to find out. We're going to find out more about this whole thing, and
that one really irritates the living hell out of me, because it was like, nature and being outdoors is can be a very sudden place. Like I've mentioned before, a friend of mine spent a lot of time hunting in Africa, and he said lions will chew you down to your toenails. Mm-hmm. And I'm very fortunate because I spent some time deer hunting in the Midwest portion of the United States, and I'm very lucky that it's been uneventful. Mm-hmm. So now one thing that was said was, if you see a herd of white-tailed deer running, get away from it. And on the opening morning, I believe, of firearm season for Indiana white-tailed deer hunting, there was a bunch of deer that they were probably a couple hundred yards off to my left, and they ran through like a pack of wild mustangs or wild horses. And I was like, oh God, what's going to happen next? I never saw anything, and you have to just keep your head on a swivel.
So it sounds like we've got a lot to talk about.
Oh yeah, we do. And this, it's going to morph into other things. Yeah.
I was just wondering, when you're in the woods, people don't cause the woods to go quiet, do they?
Mortal people of planet Earth, no.
Yeah, because the birds keep chirping, whatever.
Right.
You're saying when the woods go
insects
silent,
would still.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, this last couple of months of white-tailed deer season, guys on this hunting lease that I'm with and we manage, they said it was uncannily quiet this time. This deer season. And I was like, oh, okay.
Uh-oh.
which may
Curtis,
which may or
sounds.
which may
Wait.
Oh, we did one. That was good.
Here.
except it doesn't sound like that.
You need to do that one after you say a corny joke.
Oh,
The birds.
that's because
The
I know you
crickets.
guys are laughing inside.
Well, I think we've had a good conversation about the Dogmen and werewolves. This is a hoe side that I've not really been exposed to.
When you talk about werewolves, though, I keep on hearkening back to the movie Young Frankenstein, where they're in the cart going up to the castle, and Gene Wilder hears a wolf howling in the distance, and he goes, "Werewolf?" And Igor goes, "There, wolf." He goes, "What?" He goes, "There, wolf." And he goes, "Oh, I was asking for, he goes, "Why are you talking like that?" He goes, "Well, I thought you wanted to talk like that. Where the wolf? There, wolf." So
That was a really good movie. That really was.
That was the classic.
Was worth. Now there was a remake of a werewolf movie, A Werewolf in London, which actually was pretty good. And it had the guy that used to do the Dr. Pepper commercials in that movie, and it showed that the animal is mortal. So, and they just loaded it up with, but again, that's just a movie.
Well, didn't they have a movie? They had a Hollywood movie come out not too long ago about World War II, where the GIs went in and they came across some German experiment where they had like wolf-type creatures. I can't remember the name of the movie. Do you remember seeing that?
Is it they were in a bunch of them were going to paratroop out of a plane, or I should say parachute out of a plane, going, and they got into this crazy German Nazi lab thing, and they just strange stuff, corpses coming alive, and it was a lot of weird craziness that was going on.
Yeah, I never saw it.
I mean,
so.
Yeah, I haven't either. Just the trailer. Well, I was like, oh, okay.
Well, guys, I think we're coming to the end. Unless you guys want to anything else, I think we should save stuff for a next series to talk about this. Maybe we need to develop some type of timeline where we put together some various series where we delve a little bit more into this.
Yeah, we'll
Does that
get some
sound like
people to come on the show, maybe.
It's pretty fascinating.
Well, right, Drew, and it's yeah. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
It's like I said, it's multi-layered. There's a lot of things involved with that. A lot of things to think about, investigate, and hopefully tell the truth of, because that's why we're here. And it's going afield can be really dangerous if you don't know what you're doing. And I keep on harkening back to this friend of mine who's died a long time, several years ago, who said, if you look like food, you'll be eaten. So don't be afraid to go out in the woods. Don't be afraid to go to national parks or national forests or state parks. These are very isolated incidents.
So you say I shouldn't be going out into the woods wearing a jacket made of maraschino cherries?
I don't know if maraschino cherries are a Dogman werewolf delight or not. Probably you are, but not them.
Lady Gaga, didn't she have like a meat dress? She was draped in meat.
I think so. And she showed up to some event in an egg.
Yeah. So what Drew is saying is don't do that and go to the woods.
Yeah. If I have a black eye, I'm not going to put a stake on it and go off wandering into the woods.
Yes.
Well, right. Putting 100-mile-an-hour duct tape on it. Yeah. Well, that's not a good idea.
Okay. There you go.
Very good conversation tonight, Drew. Once again, a very interesting topic that you've brought to us and our audience. So thank you.
And for those at home, I am crazy and I do have a diagnosis. So
Hey, it's legitimate, right?
Exactly.
So if you guys want to catch the show live on YouTube, you can catch the show live. We have a YouTube channel, the Huntsmen Podcast. Just look us up in the search engine and then subscribe, and then you'll be notified of when we will go live with the next episode. And then we answer questions. If you have a question, you can put it in the chat and we'll put it on the air. So we appreciate your time and effort for listening, and everybody have a great evening and a great week.
Thank you.
Thank you.